Yeah, 6:36 on the Big 89 WLS. Andrea Darlas and Nick Digilio in for Steve Cochran. Steve's actually going to join us live from Italy at 8:30. So a couple hours, we'll talk to Mr. Cochran. We're playing this song because David Hochberg was on earlier this week talking about even though interest rates are through the roof, more people are buying homes now. Well, the same can be said. We're seeing now some of the best apartment rental deals that we've seen, Nick, in the last 2 years. If tenants now have the flexibility to move immediately, they might be able to get a good price on an apartment. So we thought we'd bring in the best. Eric Hoberman is the executive vice president of Fishman Company with 3 decades of experience in the Chicago rental market. Eric, how are you?
Great, Andrea. How are you doing? Great to be with you again.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. We're kind of at the end of the peak rental season in Chicago. So why is now a good time to look for an apartment?
Well, quite simply, there's less demand in the market. There's less people moving in Chicago at this time of year and throughout the winter, and so there are still apartments available, and there's less competition for those apartments. And landlords really don't want to leave their apartments empty over the winter, so they're fighting for the available tenants that are out there to rent those apartments. And in turn, they're discounting their apartments and offering incentives to get them.
What are some of the incentives that you're seeing?
Typically, they come in the form of free rent, whether that's 1 month of free rent, half a month of free rent. You'll also see there's been a trend over the last decade to move away from security deposits and move towards move-in fees. You'll see landlords discount those move-in fees or waive them altogether to attract tenants as well. And you'll just see, as I said, lower pricing as well than you would have seen a month or 2 or 3 ago.
Yep.
When did rental season begin? When did the term rental season begin in Chicago? And when is it for people who might not know, like peak rental season, and where did that start?
You know, it used to be a May and October move-in days in the Chicago market, and I would say a decade to 2 or more ago, we turned into rental season, and that's really the spring and summer months and into the fall, just when the weather is compatible for moving in this city. And in the winter, in December, January, February, in the bitter cold or snow, it's just not an optimal time to move. So rental season really is spring and summer, and less so in the fall.
Eric, I have a good friend of mine. She just moved in with her boyfriend. They're renting. They're both working from home. So I'm curious, how is the work from home arrangement impacting the rental market?
Well, I think when this all started at the beginning of the pandemic, Pete, you heard about people leaving urban centers, leaving the cities, going to more quiet areas, moving in young people's cases back home with family, and there was really nothing to do. You had to stay inside, right? We couldn't commingle. So that trend of being in quieter, less dense occupied places really was what we saw people doing. And now, with more hybrid work scenarios, people going back to the office, people are still working from home part-time or full-time, but they want to be around the amenities they're used to. They can still, live in these urban centers like they used to, and you're seeing a trend of people coming back to the city, and that's why demand has really increased significantly over the last year and a half, 2 years.
That makes sense. Are people renting longer? I mean, it used to be you'd rent with the option to buy or the hope of maybe buying, but it seems like people are kind of staying in their apartments and they're renting longer.
Yeah, no question. I mean, with interest rates the way they are, it's much harder to buy, as we all know, and it's expensive to move. And where consumers are getting squeezed from everywhere trying to save money. And typically, if you're willing to stay in your apartment, a landlord's willing to renew your lease for less than it's going to cost you to go out and lease a new apartment. Yeah. So it can just be a more affordable option if you want to stay put.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I personally have been living in my apartment for a long time.
Yeah,
I've been there for 12 years. Yeah. in my apartment, and I'm very happy there. And it's a great way to do it. What's the prices in the suburbs? What's the difference between the city and the suburbs in terms of rental in that regard?
Well, the suburbs have been very strong over the last couple of years too, for the reasons I outlined earlier. And the rental trend in the suburbs is continuing because of these higher interest rates, and people still want to, move there. And the life cycle of moving to the suburbs from the city hasn't changed, but it's a lot more difficult to buy a home. So demand has been very strong in the suburbs. I just think rental demand across all sectors has been very strong.
We're talking to Eric Hoberman, Executive Vice President of Fishman Company, about the rental market. I saw, Eric, just this week there was an article in Cranes that there's been a steep drop-off in new construction for apartment projects over past 12 months or so. So what does that mean for the rental market over in the future for the next maybe year or two?
Well, I think you've already had construction projects that were started a year or two ago, and those projects are continuing, and those apartments are going to come to market the rest of this year and into next year. Where you'll see an impact is more into 2025 and going forward, because there is very few new construction starts now. So demand continues to increase at a steady rate, and if you don't have more supply, it's just going to continue to drive the cost of rents up, and that trickles out to the whole market. Those new apartments that come online are more of your luxury Class A type apartment buildings, downtown, West Loop, River North City Center, and those are higher end rentals that a lot of us aren't looking for or competing for, but it still trickles out to the rest of the market because there's just less overall supply and demand continues to increase. So it's just going to drive, unfortunately, up the cost of rent. I think you'll see that, as I said, in 2025 and going forward.
Are there certain Chicago neighborhoods that thrive more than others? You know, you get your Logan Squares, you got your Humboldt Parks. I live in Old Irving Park. Are there certain neighborhoods that do better in terms of strong rental than others, specific neighborhoods in Chicago?
Certainly, the West Loop has been an incredible
West
story.
Loop?
Oh, yeah. West Loop Fulton Market. That's huge right now, isn't it?
Huge. I mean, highest rents you're going to see throughout the city. More new construction rental apartments coming online in the West Loop than in any other neighborhood in the city, and it is just for a lot of people the place to be. And rental demand and prices are really through the roof there.
We were just driving through the West Loop on Saturday night. We went to the City Winery to see a show, and we were driving down Lake, and we were going through the West Loop, and it was unbelievably dense. There were so many people down there on a Saturday night, and it seemed like everybody had, like the apartment buildings were jam-packed with people. It's just really, really thriving. What are you looking at numbers? I mean, like price-wise, if you want to get a place in the West Loop, just a typical, like if you can round it
like an average
to a figure,
rent kind of, yeah.
I mean, a one-bedroom apartment in the West Loop can be upwards of $4,000 a month.
Man,
wow.
Yeah, and
wow.
And if you look, and you can rent apartments in the West Loop that are like the nicest luxury condos you've ever seen, with rents over $10,000, over $20,000 a month.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my
What's the
God.
cheapest? What neighborhoods have the cheapest rent?
I think the most affordable rents in the city right now are on the far north and west sides, the west side, and farther south sides of the city. As you get
further out,
in the city, further out from the city center, you see rents start to come down.
That makes sense. But I did the same thing, Nick and Eric. I was in Fulton Market a couple weekends ago. I felt like I was in Times Square.
Oh, it's crazy.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. It's like 10 o'clock at night.
We were getting out of we were at the City Winery and we're going down Lake Street, and it was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And the cars were almost at a standstill. It was like Saturday night, 10 o'clock. It was crazy.
It's like the hot area.
Crazy.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much. Where can we get some more information about you or other questions, some more info?
You can get some info about our company and see what we have available to rent at mfishmanco.com.
That's Eric Hoberman. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Come back
Eric.
again.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
We'll talk to you soon. And you've been renting for a long time.
Yeah, it's.
And you love it.
I'm friends with my landlord, and he's a really good guy, and he owns a lot of buildings, and he's always been really good to me, and we have a great relationship, and I love my apartment. I'm like, I don't want to leave.
That's awesome.
And I hate moving. Hate it more than anything.
All right.
So, but I like the place I live, and I'm lucky. I have a really cool landlord, and I have a really cool place, and I like where I live.
You do have a cool place. Well, we've been lucky with the weather, but it's not going to last. We're going to see highs of 40 for Halloween. Jeff Maher, meteorologist, is going to join us after this traffic with Nick.
Got an accident here on I-57 outbound at Halstead, causing some problems here this morning. The Bishop Ford inbound at 103rd. An accident on the ramp there as well. 45 minutes now on the Kennedy from O'Hare to downtown. The Ike Thorndale to the post office, about 36, with an accident inbound at Ridgeland. Left lane is blocked. Next update, 15 minutes.